Hello, good evening everybody. I apologise to those of you who've seen my presentation before. I've tried to add a few new things and I'll talk about some things that are very specific. As you've probably seen, we actually announced our half-year results today, so this is hot off the press part of it, but also I'll include quite a lot about the business as a whole. I'll go over that because you don't need to read all that. Just to remind those of you who haven't come across us before, as the name suggests, we're in Allergy Therapeutics, we're in allergy immunology company. So this is a treatment that is for people who between moderate and severe allergy problems. So it's not people who have a slight reddening of eyes or a sniffle. These are people who can't actually sleep properly, who can't hold down a job properly. They're quite severe. But there is a significant amount of if you look at the number of people who suffer from allergies, probably about 10% fall into that modest to severe patient area that needs treatment. And importantly, our products are actually there to try and cure the disease rather than just sort out the symptoms. There are a lot of products you might well have heard people talk about. Some of you here might have used them, the sort of antihistamines, corticosteroids, those type of things. And all they do is suppress the symptoms. They don't actually try and cure the underlying allergy, whereas that's what our products, that's what we try and achieve with our products. The business itself is, we've got about 500 employees. It's still growing quite fast. And we're headquartered in Worthing in West Sussex. The reason for that is that we're actually a spin out of GSK. We spun out of GSK in 1999. We're listed on the AIM market. Our ticker is AGY. And really the business itself has grown over the period. If you look, and I'll show a chart later on, in the last 18 years we've had double-digit growth over that period. So a good, strong growing business, and we've also got a few opportunities for the future. The really three pillars of our strategy, I'll talk about those later. The first one is the European business, and that's the driver that actually produces cash and profits. We have a pipeline where we've got certain early stage products plus some later stage products, and the US, which we consider as separate, although some of the pipeline products will feed into the US. The story about our products is somewhat complex. So I've drawn up this is since I arrived at the business, I've actually drawn up that matrix to try and explain it to you. So if we look at the variety of products, unlike a normal pharma business where you'd imagine you have the typical linear thing where you put products through a trial, and if you successfully get through the trial, you take them to market. We have a variety of products. In the area of allergy, which is quite specialised, there are quite a few named patient products. So these are products which for a long time have been treating patients individually. And what happens is if you go to the doctor with an allergy problem, they will write out a prescription and that gets passed on to our factory and we produce the prescription exactly as said. So these are one-to-one, they're individually labelled and so on. So we have a wide variety. If you look down all our products here, you'll see that all of them are sold in various places on a named patient basis. 2 or 3 of them have actually been approved, so they've actually gone through a process of submitting a file and various trials. And then you'll notice in the third column what we call the German TAF process. These are products where what has happened in the market is that EU legislation came in 2008, and what they decided was they wanted to remove as many possible of the named patient products because they haven't been through a full set of clinical trials. They've only been through, obviously, a significant amount of patients have used them and used them successfully and safely, but they wanted everyone the manufacturers of pharmaceuticals to go through a proper full trial process. So as you'll see, we've got 10 products currently that are going through that process in Germany, and I'll come on to talk about a bit more later on. And then in the fourth column, there are the products which we've now got in a US process. We started US process quite some time ago. We've had 1 or 2 hiccups on the way. We do have 3 products that are in the US process, and then in a sort of normal, what we consider normal process in the sense of pharma development, we've got the Acaravac, and in fact we've also got the peanut product. As far as the products go, just to explain the naming convention, Pollenex was the older generation of our product. That was a 6-shot product. And one of the key things about our business, and the thing that makes our business unique, is we've designed products that have ultra short course. So if we talk about some of our competitors, they've got products where you have, say, 15 to 20 injections. Our product has 4 injections in a 3-week period. So one, it reduces the number of visits to the doctor. And we're talking about when you have these injections, you have to go to the doctor, you have the injection, and you have to wait for 30 minutes to see if there's any reaction. So usually, if you're a patient and you have this treatment, it takes about half a day in all, with all the travel and everything, for you for each injection. So it's a big saving in effort, and the efficacy, the results that we've had have been very good. So that's the Pollenex Quattro. So the Pollenex was 6-shot. The Pollenex Quattro is 4-shot, as the name suggests. And then further down here, we've got another product called a Caravac. That's for house dust mite. I should explain the Pollenex Quattro ones are for the seasonal pollens, such as tree and grass. A Caravac is for house dust mite, which is a perennial issue. And the Caravac uses the same technology as the Pollenex Quattro. And then further down here, we have a variety of other products, including Venomil, which is a product for bee and wasp stings. And finally, down at the bottom, we do have some oral products, although the main focus of our work is on vaccines, because that's where we think the future is. Moving on to our strategy, as I mentioned before, I've quickly glossed over it, but here are the 3 pillars of the strategy. The first one is the European business. We have a European business, which, as I say, we spun out of GSK. That was already a business where we were selling significant amounts. In the half year, we had about 42.2 million of sales. For the full year, last year we had 64 million sterling sales, and a healthy profit as well to go with that pre-R&D. The second part of the business is the strong pipeline, and I'll talk something about some of the products that are sitting in there, both at an early and late stage. And finally, the US. And the reason we're so excited about the US relative to the rest of the market is, in Europe, it's a fairly mature market. It is growing slowly, but not that significantly, whereas the US is an untapped market. These just show the sales breakdown for the full year 2017, so that's the previous year, but it gives you a good idea roughly about where our sales are. As I say, we're predominantly in Germany. That's a historical reason, but it's also because Germany is the largest market. And this shows the spread of the different products, and as you'll see, the Pollenex Quattro's got 44%, so it's a very significant part of our overall portfolio, and that's the most modern of the technologies there. Moving on to the pipeline trials, and these are the things you need to look out for if you're looking for what is going to affect our share price in the next 6 months. These are the key things. The first one is the Pollenex Quattro Birch trial. So this is a trial that's been done in Europe. It's for the approval under the German process, as I mentioned earlier. We've already fully recruited for this trial. It's ongoing at the moment, and it should read out in the second half of this year, probably in the autumn time. The second trial that we've got ongoing that will read out is the Pollenex Quattro Grass. This is a phase 2 trial. That's a trial where we find the best dose to carry into a field trial, phase 3 trial. And this is a critical trial because it's both for the German process, but also for the US. So if we can get through this trial, we'll then move on to a final phase 3 trial. We've already successfully completed one phase 3 trial. So with the second phase 3 trial, we can move on to submit our product for approval by the FDA. And this trial will report early in the second half of this calendar year, so probably sometime over the summer. The third major trial we've got ongoing at the moment, as I mentioned before, the Caravac product, which is the house dust mite. We've got a phase 1 trial which will report early in next year. One other product to mention is the Polyvac peanut. I didn't show it on that overall slide at the beginning, but it's a key long-term value creator for the business. Now, this is a bit of a movement away from our previous focus, which has been very much on seasonal pollens. I talked about Pollinex Quattro and so on. They focus on the seasonal things such as the grass and the trees. Then we've got the house dust mite, which is a perennial product. But then we're actually now looking into food allergies. And the biggest food allergy, well, the most severe food allergy and one of the biggest food allergies is peanut. And you've probably noticed that when you've been especially on an EasyJet flight. I don't know why it's EasyJet particularly, but on an EasyJet flight, quite often they go over the tannoy and say, no one open any peanuts or nuts or whatever else. And that's because of the severe reaction. There are a lot of other allergies, such as a milk allergy or something like that, where you are affected by it, but it's not so severe. And if I give you a couple of statistics, it will give you an idea. In the US, annually, about between 150 and 200,000 hospital visits for anaphylactic shock created by peanut. And sadly, on average, between 200 and 300 children a year die in the US from severe peanut allergy. So it's a very severe, life-threatening allergy. And we estimate that currently there are no products on the market for this, and we estimate that the market could be worth something about $8 billion. So it's a very significant market. We are at the moment at a very early stage. We finished a successful preclinical trial which showed very, very good results. And we think at this stage we're in the stage of we've just signed a contract to scale up from lab scale to industrial scale. But we think we may be able to create a product which potentially in 3 injections could actually create an environment where someone would actually be safe in eating peanuts. So it's a very exciting thing. But as I say, it's very early stage. When we talk about our scale-up work we're doing, that will probably take us a year. So we won't get a trial in humans, our first safety trial, until 2019. So it's a long way out. But what I would say is, if we are successful, I mean, if I talk about 1 or 2 of our competitors who've actually, they're now with a phase 3, at phase 3, they're companies like DBV and Aimmune in the US, and their business is worth billions. Obviously, we've still got a long way to go. We've got to get through those trials, and they are high-risk trials in the sense of if you get the safety profile wrong, it's very, very severe. So obviously, we're moving slowly and cautiously, but there's great potential there. And then I move on to the US. Now, as I mentioned before, the US is a huge opportunity. This is a market where currently the treatment that's given to patients is a course of injections, 50 to 100 injections for each allergy that you've got. Or sometimes they do mix them, but even so, it's a significant amount of time you have to spend in order to get treatment over a 3 to 5 year period. And the method that's used at the moment is there is not a product which is produced in a GMP conditions. These are products which actually, what happens is there are 3 companies that produce concentrates. They sell them to local allergists, and they mix them and dilute them themselves, and then they treat patients. So one, they're actually mixing them in their local surgery rather than being manufactured in a proper, sterile, clean environment of a manufacturing place. And secondly, the issue is that they're not all standardized. They have ideas about how they want to scale up the treatment, but they're not standardized. So they have the effect, for instance, if you were to move states, you have to start your treatment all over again. You can't move from one to another. So there are big downsides to the current treatment. This figure at the bottom is very interesting, 15%. That is 15% of people who actually start the treatment actually complete it. And if I talk about the compliance levels of our product in Europe, we're probably talking about 80 to 90%. Because obviously, if you're having 4 injections, maybe 1 year or in 2-year treatment, much higher chance that somebody's going to turn up for those appointments. And also, 50% of people who actually go to visit the allergist never actually undertake the treatment. And you can probably imagine it. If you turn up at an allergist and they say to you, you've got to have 50 to 100 injections, there are a lot of people who just walk out the door. They just don't have the time, or they can't face it. So there's a big potential market there. And you'll see a few other figures here. There are about 2 to 3 million Americans who suffer between moderate and severe allergies. So there's quite a big market out there. And we estimate the total value of and this is purely when we're talking about the pollens and so on, there's about a $2 billion market out there. And we think probably that potentially our grass product, if we can get it to market there, could have a maximum peak sales of 300 to 400 million. So it's a big prize to go for. There's still quite a lot to do. As I said, we're in the middle of our phase 2 trial. We need to get through that and also get through a phase 3 trial, plus produce a safety database. But we're very excited, and we will be the first to market with this injectable product. I did promise you to give you a bit of information about our latest financial results. So there's a quick summary of our financials. Our sales, as I mentioned, for the first half of the year, 42.2 million. That's up 4.4% on the prior year in actual terms, and in constant currency terms, 1.3%. We sell about 95% of our product in the Eurozone, so obviously we're affected by the euro-sterling exchange rate. Overall, our performance in this half year has not been as spectacular. If you remember back to when I presented last time, we just finished a very impressive half year where we'd grown very fast. This last year has been affected by an abnormally low pollen season. So what tends to happen if you have a low pollen season, then obviously the patients don't go to the allergist and they don't start treatment. But I would say overall, despite that, we've taken market share. So if you look at the German market, which I mentioned is absolutely key to us, we've increased our market share from 13 to 14% within the last year. So it means that we're gaining on our competitors in that position. One of the other key metrics that we use to look at our business is to look at the operating profit pre-R&D. And that really tells us about how the underlying European business is doing. And that increased 12% to 12.3 million. So it's creating profits and a lot of cash. And that cash is being invested into the European development pipeline. We spent 5.9 million in that half year on R&D. That's significantly up from the 3.8 million in the previous period. That reflects the fact that we're in the middle of these, the phase 3 trial for birch and the phase 2 grass trial. And we've publicly stated that in the second half of this year, we're going to spend probably about twice that on R&D as we follow through those trials. We finished in December with a cash balance of 25.8 million, which is a good, strong position. And we've publicly said that will be enough cash to complete, obviously, the trials that we've got ongoing at the moment, as well as our phase 3 grass trial. So going on to the operational highlights, I think as you would have seen, we've had a solid revenue growth in Europe. We've also seen some quite interesting, strong performance with Venomil and Caravac Plus, which are products that have only, well, Venomil's been around quite a long time, but Caravac's only been added to our portfolio quite recently. That's doing very well in Spain. It's our top-selling product there. We've already finished the completion of recruitment for those 2 key studies, the phase 3 birch study and the phase 2 trial for the grass. We've signed the contract for the scale-up of the peanut product. As I mentioned, we're aiming for get it into human by 2019. And we're continuing with the Caravac phase 1 trial. So quickly on to the summary. Basically, I've talked about how the European business is doing. It's actually growing well. We're doing well in the market. We're taking market share. That's the key message to that, and it's profitable. Robust set of financials overall. The clinical trials are progressing as well. In fact, the grass is ahead of schedule at the moment, and we're moving towards that possibility of getting into the US with a skip product. So overall, I think we're running according to what our strategy is and developing well. Okay, that was all I wanted to say. Thanks very much.
Any questions, anybody? Gentleman just over there, and then I'll come to you after.
Hello. What about animal hair allergies? Because considering the population, the people who have pets, there must be a huge potential market there.
Good question. Yes, we do produce. I've talked about the most popular sort of pollen treatments and so on. We do produce a few. I would say a slightly older generation treatments for that sort of thing. But as some of you might know, used to be one of our big competitors, Circassia, went down the route of the cat allergy product, which they unfortunately failed at. I think as far as our view is, the technology hadn't been fully developed. So I think there's still a chance at some stage it will happen. But for us, I think it may be something we may come to look at some stage. But very much our focus has been to stick with the main areas that we consider to be the key allergies, and also perhaps allergies where one there's a possibility of treatment, but two that it is the actual treatment is relatively easy to give. In the sense of the cat allergy, there are issues. As I say, we have an older type of product we do use for some types of treatment. We would at some stage maybe look at a new technology for that, but there are certain issues with it. As Circassia showed, one, I think the technology, but also there's a strange phenomenon that we think in relation to cats, which is that if you're a cat owner and you suffer from an allergy, you're going to be desperate to be cured. And therefore, one of the reasons we think that the Circassia trials didn't work was the fact that there's this massive placebo effect, which is unfortunate, because if you'd stuck with a Circassia trial and taken it over a long period, say a 2 or 3 year period, which is obviously a lot more expensive to run a trial over that period, you probably would have seen that naturally what tends to happen is the placebo effect tends to drop away. But as I say, as a mid-term thing, it would be an interesting area, because I think from recollection that the market for cat allergy could potentially be of the order of between 1 and 2 billion. So it is a very interesting area. But as I say, we've set our sights on the pollens we've already got, the house dust mite, which is between about 3 and 4 billion market potentially, and obviously the peanut as a starter. And the issue is obviously, given our size of business, we do need to focus just down on some particular allergies. But yeah.
Gentleman down here at the front. Yeah.
Good evening, Nick.
Oh, good evening.
You've got a very enviable cash balance at the moment of 25 million or thereabouts, and you've stated that that's enough to conduct all the ongoing studies and also the grass trial. Would it be enough also to do the very large clinical program you're going to have to do for the peanut allergy, or would you go to the market for more funds in that event? And if you did, could I urge you to include ordinary shareholders such as myself in the funding, either via an open offer to a company you're placing, or to employ the services of Primary Bid, who are sponsoring this evening?
That was a good plug. Yes, in the back. Yes. You've been paid for that one. No. Yes, to answer your question, I've been very well. Maybe I haven't been 100% clear, but the cash balance we have will be enough for a phase 3 grass trial. Now, if you look at what we've got sitting there, you could see that we've also got, as you say, we've got the peanut phase 1, potentially phase 2, and then we'd have 2 phase 3 trials we'd have to take place. We've got the Caravac, which would need a phase 2 and a phase 2 phase 3 trials. And also we've got the ragweed and the trees, which are on hold at the moment in the US, which we'd hope to potentially take off hold once we finish the grass. And so none of that is included in our funding at the moment. So the answer is yes, we have to look to the future. There are 2 options. One is to go down the route of equity raise. The other potential option would be if we decided for the US to go the route of signing up a partner to market on our behalf, we may be able to get funding from them that would pay for some of it. But at this stage, we haven't decided. But I'd say there is a reasonable chance that at some stage we will be looking to do a further equity raise, because as you say, we've got quite a portfolio that we want to take through through the trials and so on. And naturally, we will look at all methods of if we do get to that point of raising money. Yeah.
Excellent. If I could do one supplementary question, and I think you mentioned that there were 2 other companies looking at peanut allergy at the moment. Why has it taken so long for people to actually grasp a nettle on peanut allergy and try and develop vaccines? Has there been some eureka moment in science where there's been a breakthrough which allows companies such as yourselves to be able to do it?
I don't know to be honest with you, I don't know all the history, but I do know it is one of the key issues about, and one of the reasons that it's such a dangerous allergy is that it has a very small protein, and therefore there are a lot of cases where if you were to use the type of technology we've used for Pollenex or for Pollenex Quattro, we think that will still give a not very good safety profile. Interestingly enough, one of our competitors, I didn't mention that company, but there's a competitor in Germany, HAL, that have got a phase 1 trial where they're also trying for peanut, and they're using the technology we use for Pollenex and Pollenex Quattro, and we think that the safety profile won't be very good. And as you can imagine, that for this type of product, safety is absolutely key. And interestingly enough, the 2 companies I talked about, one of them DBV, which uses a epicutaneous patch, a patch you put on your skin, although it hasn't shown much effectiveness, it's shown to be quite safe, and therefore the authorities, even though it didn't succeed in it getting to its endpoint for its phase 3 trial, it may still get approval in the US because of this fact about safety. So I think, and the other one that I talked about, which is Aimune, they've also had a phase 3 trial, which has shown efficacy, but has issues over safety. I think 20% of the patients pulled out of the trial, and there were some quite serious safety issues. So
Next question at the very back.
Yes, thank you. Just wondering about the pricing to the sufferer. What sort of cost is a treatment that might address a grass allergy?
I can quote to you the price that we charge in Germany, and for a treatment for the four injections would be around €700, to give you an idea of what the type of level is. Yeah.
And are you selling both through private clinics and health services?
Yes, that's right. It goes through a variety of different places, both through the specialist allergists, some hospitals, and clinics and so on. That's the usual method. You can't, as I say, you've got to go to the doctor to have the treatment. It's not a home treatment at all. It has to be provided by a trained medic. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Question down here, the lady here.
I've got 2 questions, but I've only got time for one, probably. My first, or you can pick. My first question is about allergies and asthma, and whether the people who are in the trials also suffer from asthma, or if there is an effect, and whether you've been monitoring that and kind of quantifying that, because that's another massive market.
Yeah.
And the second question is the peanut allergy and the upcoming very expensive trial. Most people who suffer are children. Can you get them into a trial?
I'll take both of them actually. I'll try and answer them quickly so someone can get other chance for people to talk. But in relation to the asthma, it's a good point, and it is something that we look at. I mean, when we do a trial, we actually look at all the medication that someone's taking before, because people continue to take treatment for allergies, other types of treatment, so symptomatic treatment, but also they take other things for their asthma. And there is a close correlation between the two. And interestingly, one of our big competitors, ALK, they are trying to get something on their label to say that it also helps with asthma. And there is definitely a cross between the two. So far, I think ALK's experience has been that they haven't been able to get it fully on the label. They do talk about it, and there is some evidence of it, but I think in order to do a full proper trial where you actually prove the effect of the asthma as well will be quite an expensive and extensive trial, but at some stage, no doubt, I'm sure it will come. because there is a link between the two. And sorry, the second question was on the peanut allergy. Yes, thank you very much. Sorry. Yes.
The ones who die are
Yeah. I think we'll have to see. I mean, to be honest with you, at this stage, we haven't fully planned out how that phase 1 trial will look. And obviously, there are certain ethical questions about but we will have to look at that. And naturally, with all products, there is always the interest about a paediatric treatment and how that will work. So it would be part of that process. Yeah.
Nick, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks very much.